the defendant is present, as well as defense counsel, the state present as well, prosecutors, and the court resolved the victim matter on the record yesterday. I do have rulings as it relates to the motions in limine this morning. So again, there were two motions filed, one on March 4th, one on March 14th by the state seeking introduction of statements that may be hearsay or may not. That's what was argued in the motion, and whether or not they'd be admissible. In terms of what is hearsay or is it hearsay, the Idaho Rules of Evidence define hearsay as a statement, oral or written, other than one made by the declarant while testifying at the trial or hearing, offered in evidence to prove the truth of the matter asserted. That quotes Idaho Rule of Evidence 801 A and C, and from a case Sandoval Tana 138 Idaho 911. The evidence has been objected to by the defense, and so there's a question for the court to resolve of whether or not this is inadmissible hearsay. There are general exceptions to some of the hearsay statements that are in the rules, and the court has to analyze those, looking at rules 802, 803, and 804. And then so the court has to first determine whether statements are in fact hearsay, and second, whether there's any exception that allows them to be admitted. So the first matter we'll take up is the statement requested by the state in the first motion in limine filed March 4th. That is a statement of Janice Olson, and the state seeks to introduce an out-of-court statement made by Tammy Daybell to a coworker and friend, Janice Olson, somewhere around 6 weeks before the time Tammy Daybell passed away. The statement that the state seeks to introduce is quoted in the motion. That was a statement Tammy allegedly made to Janice Olson, quote, she would just, I'll read that again, quote, she would, comma, she'd just say, comma, my husband thinks I should up my insurance here at the end of my, comma, at the end of my career, comma, before I retire. He's thinking I should up my insurance. The state seeks to introduce that statement, has argued that a exception would apply, permitting that under Rule 803.3. And under 803.3, that allows for statements that are citing from the rule, then existing mental, emotional, or physical conditions. And the state's argued that these would fit within a physical condition statement, talking about the health of Tammy Daybell at the time, and the state arguing that her health is something that goes to the statement, bringing it within 803.3 for that part of the exception, which does allow a statement. Health is what's included in the rule, and a statement of the declarant's then existing physical condition. The defense argued against it, saying it simply talks about a financial decision that was being discussed and does not fit within 803.3. The court did some research on the issue in 803. There's a case, state of Idaho versus Garcia, when 803.3 may apply. Talks about four areas. One, claims when there's claims of self-defense as a justification for killing, that would not apply here. Two is if there's a defense around a suicide allegation, that would not apply here. Three, claims killing was accidental, which there's no evidence that's in the theory of the case of either party here. And then four, when a specific mens rea is an issue. That specific mens rea issue in the conspiracy could be considered. However, upon weighing things out, both under 8033 and also under Rule 403, the court finds the statement is problematic for a few reasons. Number one, just reading through the statement again and precisely what the statement is, this talks about insurance at the end of my career before I retire. And so, first of all, there's an issue there with when that would occur. There's some vagueness there. The testimony in the record so far is that uh, Tammy had not worked at the school all that long, a couple of years. There's no indication she was preparing for or nearing retirement. And this statement that insurance should be upped, quote, before she retires or at the end of her career, I think makes the statement vague as it would relate to evidence in this case. Also, under 8033, I don't find that this fits in one of those exceptions as the state has argued. It's not a statement about physical health. It's, I think, in the context here, would agree with the defense that it's really a statement about a financial decision. And so, based on that analysis, the court is going to exclude the statement on the motion in limine. The state would not be permitted to introduce that statement in the state's case in chief, as I would find it would be impermissible hearsay. However, that does not rule out it potentially coming in later, either in the form of impeachment or if somehow the defense were to open the door to make the statement again relevant for impeachment or other purposes. So that's going to be the ruling as to the state's first motion in limine, denying the motion without prejudice to have it re-raised if it comes up in either impeachment or from the door being opened by the defense. The next motion had two separate statements that were sought to be introduced. And this is the March 14th motion. The first statement is a statement where Tammy Daybell told Janet Anderson that Chad had told Tammy, quote, she is a zombie. And the state indicates that statement was made sometime late August up until October of 2019. So there's multiple layers of this statement. What Chad said to Tammy, Tammy said to Janet. When the court has gone through the analysis of this, it may be permissible on Chad's statement under statement of a party opponent or under Rule 801 D2B. That part may not be hearsay. However, then Tammy telling it to Janet, I think clearly does become hearsay when you get into the multiple layers of the statement there. The issue the court has in addition there is the timing, quite frankly, of the disclosure, noting and agreeing with what the state argued that sometimes even on the stand, witnesses will suddenly say things they hadn't reported to officers, and it's still maybe credible and truthful, and the jury can decide that. However, in this case, looking at the fact that it is a hearsay statement, apparently this witness was interviewed first about 4 years ago, May of 2020, and then the statement just came up in March of 2024, almost 4 years later. That is a concern. Further, the actual statements and how they were made were, the brief said, were attached as an exhibit B to the motion. And to the court's knowledge, I don't have exhibit B, so I just don't know exactly what was being said. But looking at the multiple layers of hearsay here, I don't find that it's fitting any exception to allow its admission in the state's case in chief. And also, I think it's problematic, the timing of when the statement occurred and was disclosed. And so the court is going to preclude the admission of that statement from Janet Anderson about, quote, she is a zombie. Also noting that the statement, even when it was made, at least according to the motion, was sometime over a 3 or 4 month period, which again, I think goes to the credibility of the statement of the court weighing out whether or not this would be a statement that would be more probative than unfairly prejudicial under a 403 balancing. So the court is going to exclude that statement from Janet Anderson. Again, though, it may become admissible in impeachment, or if the defense somehow opens the door to bring that back in. But in terms of the state's case in chief, it won't be permitted to be brought in as being inadmissible hearsay. The last statement in the second part of the March 14th motion in limine relates to a statement that the state seeks to introduce from a witness, Pam Peebles, who was a coworker with Tammy Daybell, and the statement that Tammy told her, quote, "This is the best I have ever felt in my life," and that, quote, she was excited about getting ready for a race. That's a statement purported to have been made 2 days before Tammy's death. The court does find that that particular statement, I think, clearly fits within 8033, which allows an exception to hearsay for a then existing mental, emotional, or physical condition. The statement of the declarant's then existing physical condition, such as bodily health, is permitted, and that is a statement clearly about her health and would fall within the 8033 exception. And also on a 403 balancing, its probative value is not outweighed by unfair prejudice. This is an issue that's already been raised by other witnesses, and a defense has crossed those witnesses, also further bringing up the issue of what was Tammy's health at the time before she died. The statement's also made in a narrow enough time frame to make it relevant as well, so the court will permit the statement from Pam Peebles if the state wishes to introduce that in its case in chief. So those are the rulings on each of those 3 evidentiary matters. Does the state have any questions on the rulings, Mr. Wixom? Any questions from the defense?
No, Judge. Thank you for your time and effort in this matter.
Okay, thank you. We'll just issue a very brief order referencing the court's findings on the record on those matters. So that's in the case. That'll conclude the ruling for this morning then. In terms of getting going on evidence, I'm not sure where if the jurors were coming in late, or would they be ready to be brought into the courtroom now?
Fine, we're ready to go.
Okay. If the parties are ready, we said we'd start at 9. We're a little early. Is the state okay to proceed, or do you need a minute?
I think we need a moment, Your Honor.
Okay, so you want to just start evidence at 9 o'clock?
If we could do that, Your Honor, that would be great. Thank you.
Okay, and that's what I mentioned yesterday, so we'll go ahead and get on the record at 9 with further evidence. We'll take a brief recess until then. I will note to the parties also, I did receive the juror affirmations from all the jurors this morning, and they're all here and have signed their affirmations, so we'll get started at 9 o'clock.
All rise.
Okay, I missed what he said on the second issue. I sounded like it was going to be out. Oops. Whoops, something's not muted. Okay, I think we've got it. Okay, let's look and see what's in the news. Oh, let's see. Russian state TV threatens to attack 2 NATO nations. Ally of Russian President Vladimir Putin discussed with guests on state TV the possibility of Russia attacking 2 members of NATO. Vladimir Solokyov, one of the most prominent figures in the Kremlin-backed media, made comments during Russia One video discussing by Adam Gerashenko, former advisor to Ukraine's minister. Let's see. Oh, he's threatening Poland and France. Says Russian propagandists threatened with attack, but no one will know who did it. Yeah, I think if you threaten somebody and they're attacked, I think we've got a pretty good idea who's responsible. So, let's see what else is in the news. Oh, interesting. Let's take a look at this here. And an intimate assault conviction of movie producer Harvey Weinstein has been overturned by New York's highest court. The New York Court of Appeals, in a scathing 4-3 opinion, overturned Weinstein's conviction on sex crimes against 3 women, finding the trial judge erroneously admitted testimony of uncharged alleged prior acts against persons other than the complainants of the underlying crimes. The testimony served no material non-propensity purpose and portrayed the defendant as in a highly prejudicial light. Weinstein's spokesperson said, "We are happily surprised in studying the ruling. Weinstein's team, which is eagerly awaiting the ruling, was not expecting to be in Weinstein's favor after a succession of rulings in different courts all went against Weinstein." Weinstein was also convicted of offenses in Los Angeles and sentenced to 16 years in prison there. Because Weinstein is already convicted in California, he will not be released, but instead transferred to the custody of prison authorities in California. Weinstein, 72, is a well-known, powerful man within the entertainment industry, and prosecutors said he abused his power to take advantage of aspiring female actors, I'll note it called actresses, like an alleged victim, to coerce them into unwanted sexual encounters. According to the prosecution, the quid pro of assisting them with their careers in exchange for favors on demand was both common behavior and well-known secret throughout the film industry. An explosive New York Times article in 2017 reported Weinstein had reached at least 8 settlements with women accused him of misconduct over decades. Story featured actor Ashley Judd publicizing Weinstein, propositioning her in 1997, sparked an avalanche of accusations from women who came forward with similar accounts, and largely kicked off the Me Too movement, according to targeting prominent celebrities for sexual misconduct. Weinstein was arrested in May 2018, was charged with first and third degree assault for one woman and third degree criminal acts against another. He was found guilty in February 2020 of 2 felonies, criminal assault and third degree intimate assault, but was acquitted of the 2 most serious charges, predatory assault. He was also acquitted of first degree intimate assault. Prosecutors said the testimony of women, other than those who claim formed the basis of the criminal charges, spoke to Weinstein's state of mind of using forcible compulsion. The majority, however, said the time-tested rule against propensity evidence, which in criminal cases serves as a judicial bulwark against a guilty verdict based on supposition rather than proof. Manhattan District Attorney's Office could decide to retry Weinstein. We will do everything in our power to retry this case and remain steadfast in our commitment to survivors of assault, the spokeswoman for the Manhattan District Attorney, Alvin Bragg, said in a statement. Prosecutors are now reviewing the language of the opinion and must make sure the alleged victims are on board to testify if Weinstein were to be retried. Just a note that since he's been convicted in California, they could bring that in. Attorney Douglas Wigdor, who represented 8 alleged Weinstein victims, included 2 of the Molyneux witnesses, those pertaining to the crime charged at the New York criminal trial, said in a statement, "Today's decision is a major step back in holding those accountable for acts of sexual violence. The court routinely admitted evidence of other uncharged acts where they assist juries in understanding issues concerning the intent, modus operandi, or scheme of the defendant." He continued, "The jury was instructed on relevance of this testimony, and overturning the verdict is tragic in that it will require victims to endure yet another trial." Court of Appeals decided the evidence of uncharged crimes allowed at trial was unnecessary to establish Weinstein's intent and served only to establish defendant's propensity to commit crimes charged. The opinion also said the trial judge, James Burke, abused his discretion when he allowed Weinstein to be cross-examined about uncharged conduct, ruling it served no purpose other than to display for the jury the defendant's loathsome character. This is a developing story. We'll see whether he gets retried on those or not. Let's see what else is in the news. We've only got 3 minutes till they're supposed to come back on the record here, so. And the texts start arriving. Hello, Karen. Saturday is the state political convention, and I'm a delegate, and I am getting texts going left, right, and center. So it'll be over in 2 days. What can I say? Let's take a look and see what's been posted on Twitter this morning. Somebody on Twitter is criticizing the ruling, saying the stuff came in for Lori's trial, and she wasn't even married to Tammy, and it came in for, doesn't come in for Chad. Yeah, she's got a good point on that. That's inconsistent. One of the statements came in. It sounds like the statement about what was the second? The second statement was about her being telling a coworker that Chad told her she was a zombie. Isn't coming in. I kind of wondered, because that was a bit problematic in that it was something that came up after 4 years. It is what it is, so I guess we have to go with it. So let's take a look.
All rise.
Here we
District Court's
go.
again in session.
All right, if we could please have the jurors brought in.
All right, please. Here's our President County for your honor.
All right, thank you. Mr. Bailiff, please be seated. All right, good morning. We're back on the record on case CR 22-21-1623, State of Idaho versus Chad Guy Daybell. We're continuing evidence in the state's case in chief. We left off yesterday with Detective Kaya Kamanu on the stand in direct examination. I believe the state's still proceeding with more direct. Is that correct?
That is correct, Your Honor.
Okay, if you'd like to continue with testimony, Detective Kaya Kamanu is here. You can go ahead and take the stand and we'll allow you to continue on direct. I will note also, I received all of the juror affirmations and the jury is all here properly seated. So thank you again, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, for continuing to follow the court's instructions as you retire home each night. And with that, Ms. Blake, once you're ready, you can continue with your direct.
Your Honor, may I be handed back State's Exhibit 107B?
Yes.
Detective Kaikamanu, when we left off yesterday, we had been talking about some searches linked to a Homer J. Maximus account. Do you recall that?
Yes,
And you had prepared an exhibit summarizing some of the searches that you located on that account. Is that correct?
yes,
Your Honor, I believe we left off with the state having asked permission to publish State's 107B.
Yeah, we had the tech issue. I believe and hope that's all been sorted out. They worked on it for a while, so I think we've got things working. If those monitors don't work also, please make an indication, jurors, and you can publish.
Thank you, Your Honor. If I may have just a moment, let's see if I can get this fixed. Thank you for your patience, everyone. Sorry about that. Detective Kaikamanu, does this look like the start of the PowerPoint presentation that you created?
Yes.
And can you remind the jury, who was that Homer?
Cox.
And if we turn to the first slide, can you see the date on there?
Yes.
And what date is that?
October 8th, 2019.
And can you remind the jurors when the attempted shooting of Tammy Daybell occurred?
October 9th, 2019.
What is it about these searches on October 8th that caught your attention?
These searches, Alex Googled the 100-yard drop to 200 and 100 to 300.
And when we talk about a drop, can you explain what that is?
During shooting and sighting in your rifle with your scope, depending on how far you're out in yardage, a lot of times you will dial in that scope to a precise point of impact of your bullet. The drop of the bullet, the further you're out, the drop of the bullet tends to go down a little bit.
So essentially the idea being that from where you're standing, that's going to be where the bullet will go and where it will ultimately land or hit a target.
Correct.
And also in there, it looks like it was a 6.5 Grendel specifically.
Yes.
What kind of gun was recovered from an apartment associated with Alex Cox?
Alexander Arms 6.5 Grendel.
And then it looks like there's another date on there, October 9th of 2019. Is that correct?
Correct.
And there's some additional searches there. What about those caught your attention?
He searches just different uppers for ARs, muzzle energy brake of a 6.5 Grendel, and frog sizing of frog tog pants.
And breaking those down a little bit and actually going back to October 8th, was there anything else other than it being the 6.5 Grendel that stood out to you with these particular searches?
Not at this time to me, no.
And then on the October 9th, we've talked about the 6.5 Grendel. What about the frog tog sizing caught your attention?
There were some frog togs purchased on this same day at a different location.
And from your investigation, did you learn anything in relation to where those frog togs may have been purchased?
Yes.
And where was that?
Sportsman's Warehouse in Idaho Falls, Idaho.
Did you learn anything in relation or review anything in relation to where a device associated with Alex Cox was located that same day?
Yes.
And where was that?
Sportsman's Warehouse in Idaho Falls, Idaho.
Do you know what color those frog tog pants were?
Black.
And then when we go to the next slide, can you read the date of these searches into the record?
October 10th, 2019.
And can you explain what about these searches stood out to you?
On this day was after the attempted shooting on Tammy Daybell. And the next day he is searching if an AR functions in cold weather, how an AR functions in cold weather. Hornady one shot shooting in cold weather. Also how to prep your AR to shoot in cold weather. He also is searching if mag rings shrink in cold weather.
Do you reside around the Fremont County area?
I do.
Have you resided there for some time?
Yes.
What are Octobers generally like in that part of the state?
Microphone, please, Mr. Pryor.
Objection, Judge. It's calling for speculation. He's talking in generalities, and he has no testimony or knowledge of what the weather was like at any time this particular year.
Your Honor, he testified that he lives in the area and has lived there for some time. I think it would be
I
within his
agree, and
personal knowledge.
I'll overrule.
Thank you. If you can answer.
Can you repeat that?
What are the Octobers generally like in that part of the state?
Octobers get fairly cold in that month. Sometimes prior to that month, Octobers in eastern Idaho are hit and miss.
Do you know what the temperature was on that day?
Believe it was 26 degrees.
Judge, I'd like some foundation as to how he knew that.
Ms. Blake, knowing the precise, I agree, degree temperature would require additional foundation.
Did you do anything to look into what the temperature was that day?
I did.
What did you do?
I Googled and got on to the National Weather Service and put in that date, October 9th, 2019, to see what the temperatures were during that day,
And what were the temperatures?
26 degrees.
And if we go to the next slide, can you read the date of these searches into the record?
October 12th, 2019.
What about these particular searches caught your attention?
So this was after the attempted shooting on October 9th. On this search, he's Googling how to attach a ghillie suit, a cover to a ghillie suit. He's also Googling if a 6.5 Grendel will shoot through a windshield. He Googles the penetration through Dodge Dakota, 2008 Dodge Dakota steel body thickness, the thickness on the doors of a 2008 Dodge Dakota, and the gauge thickness of, or how thick 22 gauge steel is.
And if we break these down a little bit, can you explain what a ghillie suit is?
A ghillie suit's used a lot in the military, snipers. It's a cover that they can use for cover while in the weeds, the brush, the trees, so they're not seen.
And what about a 2008 Dodge Dakota stood out?
Tammy Daybell and Chad Daybell had a 2004 Dodge Dakota registered to them.
And again, a 6.5 Grendel was recovered from an apartment associated with Alex Cox.
Correct.
As part of your investigation, did you also look at some shooting range records?
I did.
Do you recall which shooting range you reviewed records from?
It was a sportsman's club located in St. Anthony, Idaho.
And Your Honor, I have what's been marked as States Exhibit 396 and 396A. Your Honor, I just handed the bailiff a courtesy copy for defense counsel, a copy for the court, and a courtesy copy for Your Honor.
All right.
And Detective Kaikamano, if you just look through those particularly Exhibit 396A. And Your Honor, while he's looking through those, I believe these are a stipulated to exhibit. The first exhibit 396 would be the affidavit of business records, and exhibit 396A would be the actual logs.
That is correct, Judge.
All right, those have been offered now and admitted, so 396 and 396A are both admitted exhibits.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay.
And Detective, do those appear to be the records that you reviewed?
Yes.
Were you able to determine whether or not it appeared Alex Cox had been at that gun range?
Yes.
And what did you determine?
Alex Cox didn't sign in as Alex Cox on these sheets. He did sign in as C. Quint, which C. Quint, or I should say C.P. Quint, is the license plate on his Ford F-150 truck. So on the sign-on sheet, the only letter that's missing in that is the P.
And were you able to determine how many times this C. Quint or Alex Cox had visited that gun range?
Yes,
How many times had he visited?
5 times through October 7th to the 15th of 2019.
And again, the attempted shooting of Tammy Daybell was which day?
October 9th, 2019,
And what day was Tammy Daybell pronounced dead?
October 19th, 2019.
As part of your investigation, did you also review some data recovered from a phone associated with Tammy Daybell?
I did.
And Your Honor, I have what's been marked as States Exhibit 108. It is a affidavit of business records in relation to Tammy Daybell's phone.
Thank you.
Give us a moment, Ms. Blake. We're gonna verify the number here. I think we've already got 108 admitted.
Your Honor, may we approach briefly?
Yes, actually, let me have the bailiff hand you the admitted exhibit for your review. Yeah.
All right, Your Honor, I think we have sorted that out. So State's Exhibit 108 was already admitted.
Yes.
The state would ask to have the witness shown State's Exhibit 291. Do you recall reviewing that particular email?
Yes, I do.
And Your Honor, there is a stipulation to admit the contents of Tammy Daybell's phone. This is one of the items retrieved from her phone. So the state would move for admission of Exhibit 291.
Any objection?
No, Judge.
All right, Exhibit 291 is admitted.
And Your Honor, the state would ask for permission to publish.
You can publish.
And Detective, are you able to see who sent this email?
Yes.
And who was that?
Tammy Daybell from tammy.daybell@gmail.com.
And are you able to see who it was sent to?
Yes.
And who is that?
Mark Daybell at mark.daybell@missionary.org.
And can you see the date that this shows it as having been sent?
Yes. On 10/13/2019 at 2:38, or correction, 2:23:18.
And Your Honor, I'm going to pause to allow the jurors to read.
Okay, thank you.
And Detective, this was sent just 4 days after that attempted shooting, is that correct?
Correct.
And when we look at that second paragraph, are you able to see approximately what time Tammy says she arrived home that night?
Yes, approximately 9:15.
And are you able to see in there, actually, let me back up. Can you read the last couple sentences there, starting with "I looked up"?
I looked up thinking it was Dad or Garth to help me carry stuff in. Nope, it was a guy dressed all in black with a ski mask on, pointing a rifle at me.
And Your Honor, again, I'm going to pause to allow the jurors to read. And Detective Kaikamanu, could you read the paragraph starting with, "I think I was," that first full paragraph into the record?
I think I was a bit in shock because I just said, "What do you think you were doing?" Then I noticed the rifle was actually a paintball gun. It had a hopper on top. The guy started pulling the trigger, and I could hear the clicking and whooshing sound of an empty paintball gun. He stayed standing by the back of the car, just pulling the trigger while pointing the gun at me. For some reason, I just kept asking him what he thought he was doing. At that point, I was actually more annoyed than scared because he was standing between me and the door and he didn't step towards me or even say anything. The scared part came after when my brain thought of things that could have happened.
And Your Honor, again, I'm going to pause to allow the jurors to read.
All right.
And Detective Kaikamanu, could you read the last sentence of that second paragraph, starting with "on Thursday night"?
On Thursday night, though, I didn't go to Zumba because I was quite understandably did not want to be out after dark alone.
And I'm going to go back to that paragraph that we were looking at previously. In there, Tammy refers to the paintball gun as a rifle. Is that correct?
Correct?
And she specifically references a hopper.
Yes.
And that's in reference to why she thought it was maybe a paintball gun.
Yes.
She also indicates the guy started pulling the trigger. Is that correct?
Yes.
In this, do you see where she indicates that she was scared?
Yes,
And in that last sentence that we just talked about, she indicated she was scared to go out alone the next night.
yes.
And Your Honor, I'm going to ask to publish State's Exhibit 281A. It was admitted yesterday.
Okay, you can publish.
And Detective, we talked about this firearm yesterday. Do you recall that?
Yes.
And where was this recovered from?
This was recovered from Alex Cox's apartment.
And can you remind the jurors what type of firearm this is?
This is an Alexander Arms 6.5 Grendel.
And I think you have a pointer up there. But when we just looked at that email from Tammy, she specifically references a hopper or what she thought might be a hopper on the firearm. Can you again explain where on this firearm, if this were a paintball gun, where the hopper would?
Again, like I was referencing yesterday, the scope is on the top of the rail of the gun right here. On a paintball gun, it comes off right on the side and up. Right there. Yes.
We saw some searches about drilling a baffle to make a suppressor. Can you talk a little bit about what a suppressor is?
A suppressor is a device that can be screwed onto the end of rifles, handguns, miniguns that will make the bullet coming out quiet. Um, Sometimes people make homemade suppressors, which they have to drill holes. And you can also buy those legally.
Where on the firearm would you attach the suppressor?
The suppressor is attached right on the end of the barrel right there.
And Your Honor, I have what's been marked as State's Exhibit 281C. If I can have the detective shown a copy.
You may.
Detective, do you recognize that photo?
Yes.
And did you in fact take that photo?
Yes.
And what is it a photo of?
This is a photo of the end of the rifle.
A close-up photo?
Yes.
Your Honor, the state would move for admission of State's Exhibit 281C.
Any objection?
No, Judge.
Exhibit 281C is admitted.
Your Honor, may I have permission to publish?
Yes.
And officer or detective, can you tell us what we're seeing on the end of that gun?
So at the end of the rifle right there, it's threaded. Um, a lot of times there's muzzle brakes on there, or you can take that muzzle brake off and thread a suppressor onto that.
Detective Kaikamano, through your investigation, did you learn anything in relation to whether or not Alex Cox was in the area of the Daybell residence on October 9th?
Yes.
And what did you learn?
A device associated with Homer J. Maximus.
Judge, foundation.
Ms. Blake?
Thank you, Your Honor. Detective Kaikamanu, as part of your investigation, did you review reports of other investigators?
Yes.
And did you discuss the matter with other investigators?
Yes.
And through your discussion and review, did you learn anything or review anything in relation to the location of a device associated with Alex Cox on October 9th of 2019?
Yes.
Did you learn any, what did you learn?
On October 9th, 2019, a device that was associated with Alex Cox, known as Homer J. Maximus, was located going up and turning next to the Daybell residence and driving and making a turn and going back around the Daybell residence. This time frame was about 4:40, 4:55 p.m. to 5:03 p.m.
So 4 hours or so before the attempted shooting.
Yes.
And later in the day, that same device was at Sportsman's Warehouse in Idaho Falls. Is that correct?
Yes.
Detective Kaikamanu, are you aware if any paintball guns were located in the residence associated with Alex Cox?
Not that I'm aware of.
Are you aware if there were any other calls on October 9th that you found in relation to anyone else reporting a masked man pointing a rifle at them?
I did not find any.
You aware of any other reports around that time about a masked man pointing a paintball gun at anyone?
No.
So to the best of your knowledge, this was an isolated incident around this time?
Yes.
Do you recall reviewing anything in relation to some geofence location data?
Yes.
What dates did you review that in relation to?
I got those geofence warrants through October 18th into October 19th, 2019.
And again, what day was Tammy pronounced deceased?
October 19th, 2019.
Did you end up receiving responsive data in relation to the geofence?
I did.
Which specific locations did you ask for that data for October 18th to October 19th?
I did two fences, one located at 202 North, 1900 East, which is Chad and Tammy Daybell's residence. And then I did another one at 3462 Salem Highway, which is the LDS church, just 2.6 miles south of the Daybell residence.
And with those geofence warrants, were you looking for a specific perimeter radius on those?
Yes, I did 150 meters.
And can you tell us a little bit about back in your request to those?
So when I requested information for data on any device coming through those through the geofences, I got a response from Google with a bunch of Google identification numbers.
What did you then do with those identification numbers? Can you talk us through that process?
So when we write a warrant like that, Google will send back the numbers that have been going through through the geofences. They don't come back with any names. And so we then had to write another warrant with those numbers to try and find out the associated name to those devices or those numbers.
Did you locate some specific numbers that you did something with?
I did.
How many numbers caught your attention in that initial response?
So the time I had the geofence warrants up, there were 4 numbers that had gone through both geofence warrants or locations.
Did you do anything to follow up on those 4 numbers?
I did.
What did you do?
I met with Detective Stubbs, who at the time worked with Rexburg PD, and he has knowledge on how the geofence works. And we went through the numbers. 2 of the numbers,
Judge, I'm going to object at this point. There hasn't been sufficient foundation to where this knowledge has come from. I've been somewhat patient.
Sustained.
Detective Kaikamanu, did you send in a second search warrant in relation to these geofence?
yes,
And did you receive responsive information?
yes,
And how many numbers did you request additional information for?
4.
And you were talking about having met with Detective Stubbs. Did Detective Stubbs initially recognize anything about those 4 numbers?
Judge, objection, that would call for hearsay.
Sustained.
Your Honor, if I may respond.
Well, I would re-ask. I think it was just going to elicit hearsay.
Did you learn anything in relation to those 4 numbers prior to getting the second return?
I did, yes.
And what did you learn?
Judge, again, it may call for hearsay.
Your Honor, this goes for why the officer did what he did next in his investigation, not for the truth of the matter.
Overruled. You can answer.
I learned that one of the numbers that had come back in my geofence warrant, Detective Stubbs already had that number, which was associated with Alex Cox on a different warrant that Detective Stubbs had wrote and got information back.
And in relation to the other 3 numbers, did you end up receiving responsive data on who those devices were associated with?
I did.
Did you do follow-up on that?
I got a hold of 2 of them. One of them I could not get a hold of.
What were you able to determine in relation to those other 3 numbers?
One of them lives in the Parker area, which is north of Chad Daybell's residence. And the other one lives on Trapper Lane, which is also north of the Daybell residence.
So would it have been normal for their devices to be in that area?
Yes.
In relation to the device associated with Alex Cox, what did you learn regarding that device?
The device that was associated with Alex Cox and Homer J. Maximus, and looking through the data, the night of October 18th, 2019, that device was at the Salem Church at 10:04 that night, or 10:05 p.m.
Sometime just after 10?
Correct.
Do you know how long the device showed as being located in that vicinity?
In correctional time, I believe it was 10:07 p.m. and it showed him there until 10:45 p.m.
And when we're talking about a geofence warrant, do you know what type of data they're looking at as far as placing a device there?
I believe that is off Wi-Fi and GPS.
So with the geofence, it's located there until 10:45 p.m. of October 18th, correct?
Correct.
Did you learn anything else in relation to that device as far as any later time that night?
That device shuts off or goes dormant and is no longer there. And it is later picked up at 11:53, roughly 7 miles south of the church.
Judge, could we identify what church he's talking about?
And is this the same church that you previously referenced?
Correct, the Salem Church.
And again, how far is the Salem Church from the Daybell residence?
2.6 miles.
So we know a device associated with Alex Cox is there from 10:07 to 10:45 p.m. Is that correct?
Correct,
And from there, we're not sure where the device is
correct,
until 11:53 p.m.
correct.
And at 11:53 PM, can you remind us again where that's located?
It was located about 7 miles south of the Salem Church on Highway 20.
Through your investigation, did you learn who the last person besides Chad Daybell to see Tammy would have been?
Garth Daybell.
And through your investigation, did you learn where Garth Daybell was on the night of October 18th of 2019? Or yeah, October 18th of 2019?
He was at work.
Through your investigation, did you learn if he was at work all night?
I believe he got off around 1 o'clock in the morning.
Do you know where he was working?
He worked at that time, he was working at the Haunted Mill.
And what is the Haunted Mill?
It's October. The Haunted Mill is a haunted, scary attraction.
And it's seasonal.
Seasonal, yes.
When you looked at that geofence, did you get any return on a device associated with Chad Daybell?
No,
Not at either location.
no.
Did you later learn where Chad had indicated he was on October 18th into the morning hours of October 19th?
From other deputies' reports, he had told them that he had been home.
And yet no device was located in relation to Chad Daybell.
Correct.
So in your review, there's location data placing a device associated with Alex Cox near the Daybell residence on October 9th of 2019, correct?
Yes,
And on the night of October 18th of 2019?
yes.
Were you able to find any connection between Alex Cox and Tammy Daybell?
No,
Were you able to determine who Alex Cox knew in that area?
at that time, no. The only person that I was aware of would be Chad Daybell.
Through your investigation, did you become aware of some emails from Charles Vallow that he'd sent to, an email that he sent to Tammy Daybell?
Yes,
Did you also become aware of an email Charles Vallow sent to Chad Daybell?
yes.
Do you recall what the content or what the gist of the email that he sent to Tammy was about?
The email that was sent to Tammy was on June 29th, 2019. And Charles was reaching out to her school address, email address, and telling her that he had some information about an affair going on. He didn't go into too much detail because he didn't want to explain all that over email, and left Tammy his number to have Tammy call him.
And through your investigation, were you ever able to determine whether or not Tammy Daybell had contact with Charles Vallow?
I was not able to confirm that.
And in relation to the email Charles sent to Chad Daybell, do you recall the gist or content of that?
Yes.
And what was that about?
So Charles sent on the same day an email to Chad, telling Chad that he was aware of what was going on between him and his wife, and Chad needed to tell his wife, or Charles was going to expose them. He was also aware that Lori had sent him some dance videos of her, and that was inappropriate.
Through your investigation, did you learn whether Chad and Lori were married?
Yes.
And what did you learn?
I learned that they got married November 5th, 2019.
And again, Tammy Daybell was pronounced dead on October 19th of 2019.
Yes.
Do you know when her funeral was?
October 22nd, 2019.
So just 3 days later.
Yes.
And I have no further questions.
All right, thank you, Ms. Blake. Cross-examination.
Judge, would you like me to start or do you want to take a break?
Why don't you go ahead and start and we'll take a break here in about 20 minutes or so, if that works. Can we have the microphone, please?
Officer, if you would allow me to either call you Officer K or I'm going to mispronounce your name for the next 20, 25 minutes.
That Officer K is okay.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Now, officer, you took the liberty of let me find this. Going through talking about your report about the emails between Mark Daybell and Tammy. Is that right?
Yes.
And Judge, I believe that was Exhibit 291. And if I could have 291.
Yes, we'll have the bailiff hand that to you or to the witness, Mr. Pryor,
Okay.
which,
Just to me. And Judge, if I could have permission to just publish.
you may publish that.
And officer, if you could tell me the date of that email.
10/13/2019.
Okay. And then that was obviously dear Marky, that would be Tammy's son.
Yes.
Okay. In the very first sentence, it said on Wednesday during the day, a lady pulled into the Price's driveway, grabbed their dog, drove off, right?
Yes.
Then she went on to talk about what transpired about that and about where they tried to locate where the lady lived. Is that fair?
Yes.
Okay. Now, from your investigation, were you able to determine where Regan Price lives?
Yes.
Where's Regan Price live?
Regan Price lives directly south of Chad Daybell's house.
Okay. And then that would be directly east of Joe Murray's house.
Correct. Yes.
So if we have if we can visualize this, we have Chad Daybell's property. And approximately how big is Chad Daybell's property? Do you know?
Not aware of that.
Okay. It's a more than an acre.
Yes.
Okay. And directly across the street from Chad Daybell's property is another house, correct?
Yes.
And then kitty corner to the south and to the west would be Joe Murray, right?
Yes.
And directly southeast of Chad's property would be Regan Price. Would that be fair?
Yes.
Okay, so 4 houses all kitty corner from each other. And this is more of a rural setting. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
And the houses are all on larger plots of property, correct?
Yes.
But the houses themselves are relatively close in terms of location. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
all of the houses on that particular corner, we heard on the 911, there was something about a flashing yellow light. And on that very corner, that's where all the 4 residences are located, pretty much on the corner of each of those, that intersection, right?
Yes,
Okay, so relatively close together are these homes, that we've established that, right?
yes,
Okay, so one of the close neighbors is this lady by the name of Regan Price, correct?
yes.
And she talked about how somebody um, pulled into their driveway and grabbed their dog. Do you recall when that took place?
Well, in this email, she's writing it on the 13th about the night of the attempted shooting, so I'm assuming it was on the 9th.
Okay, so if you look at the very first line to her, she's writing this on the 13th to her son, which was a short time after the paintball incident. She says on Wednesday, during the day with Reagan outside. So can we presume that it was that Wednesday of that week?
Yes,
Okay. So at that point, somebody grabbed Reagan Price's dog, took off, stole the dog and disappeared, correct?
yes,
And then now she says on the same day, you look down below to the second paragraph, right? You see that?
Yep. yes,
She was coming home from clogging. It was about 9:15 and she backed into the driveway. Okay. So the nose of her car was facing out of the driveway, correct?
yes,
Now, what I'd like to know is, you've been out to the house, right?
yes.
And how long of a driveway is that?
The front driveway, and I haven't measured it, but maybe,
I can make it easier for you if we could do it in
Yeah.
terms of an analysis. Would you be able to park 3 cars back to back in that driveway and not have any of them sticking out into the road?
maybe 2.5 to 3. Yeah,
Okay, 2.5 to 3 cars maybe,
Yeah.
right? Okay. So, and from your experience as a police officer, do you know the length of what the average automobile would be?
I am not aware of that.
Okay. But if we took the size of an average automobile and we multiplied it times 2.5, that's how much space we're talking about, right?
Yeah.
And if you were looking at this bench in front of us, how many cars would you say could, where the jury's sitting, how many cars could you push back to back in front of this bench?
Probably about 2.
Okay, so if we're asking about 2.5, would it be fair to say that the driveway was from the end of that bench to where this officer is?
Possibly.
Okay, so that's the length of the driveway. And at that point, from what I understand, according to this document to Mark, she was getting some items out of the back seat and realized someone was at the back of the car. So she backed her car in and someone was behind her car. That would be near the garage. Is that the way you're reading that?
Behind her car, yes.
Okay, so someone was behind her car near the garage. She looked up thinking it was Dad or Garth to help her. Nope, it was a guy dressed in black with a ski mask on, pointing a rifle at me. And she did say the word rifle, didn't she?
Yes,
Okay. Then she went on to talk about that she was in shock because what do you think you were doing? Then the next line was starting with then. Would you read that next line for me?
Then I noticed the rifle was actually a paintball gun. It had a hopper on top.
Okay. Now, you know what a hopper is, right?
Yes,
You've seen a hopper?
yes,
You know a hopper is different than a rifle scope, right?
yes,
And you know that, Judge, I'm gonna. So in any event, You know that a hopper is a little different than a rifle scope, right?
Yes,
And you know that a hopper is a large composite of some kind container, right?
it's plastic container.
A big
Yes,
plastic container, right?
yes.
And would you agree with me that it would be very difficult to confuse a hopper with a rifle scope, right?
I wouldn't agree with you on that if you're
Okay.
not sure what a rifle is with a scope on it or a
Okay.
paintball gun with a hopper.
Did you happen to go over the report of Coulter Cannon?
I did.
Did you happen to go over or discuss the case with Coulter Cannon?
A little bit, yes.
Okay. Were you aware that when Coulter Cannon came up to the went in the house and looked at one of the Google searches that Tammy was performing prior to the police arriving? Do you remember that?
I was not aware of that.
Okay. Or did you happen to look at Tammy's email and searches on that computer to determine whether Tammy had looked at anything prior to the police arriving?
Not on her computer, no.
Okay. Were you aware that Officer Cannon walked up to the computer with Garth Daybell and Tammy Daybell and proceeded to look at pictures of paintball guns?
I was not aware of that.
Were you aware that during the Google search by Tammy Daybell, that she pointed to the actual paintball gun that she saw the gentleman holding that day?
I was not aware of that.
Okay, were you not aware of that because Coulter Cannon didn't include that information in his report well, not in his first report, right? That wasn't included in his first report, was it?
I didn't read that in his report.
Right. You didn't read it in his supplemental report either when he chose to supplement the report, correct?
Correct.
Now, Judge, previously we had stipulated to the admission of Defense Exhibit 14.
Okay, has it been offered or admitted yet, Mr.
I'm
Pryor?
going to offer it now, Judge, and ask that it be admitted. It was agreed to by stipulation.
Has the state reviewed Exhibit 14?
We have, Your Honor, but if I can be reminded of exactly what it is.
It's the Google,
All right.
it's
Yeah.
the searches, yes.
Well, let's do this. I want to go ahead and that may take a moment. I think it's a logical breaking point for our mid-morning recess. So I'll have the state review the exhibit that's been offered during the break. And let's try and about 10:35.
Thank you, Judge.
Okay, so we are in the morning break and love recess. Well, outside the window it's starting to look a little cloudy. There's talking about possible rain coming up, or light rain, I should say. Okay, let me take a look and see what we got. Okay. Yeah, I think that Tammy, that Chad went, oh, well, it was probably a paintball gun. Did you see a hopper? And planted the idea in her mind, and she started going, oh yeah, you're probably right, I'm just being alarmist and so forth. I don't think that there's any doubt that somebody is shooting at her, somebody's shooting at Brandon Boudreaux, somebody shot and killed Charles Vallow, and that person just happens to be in the vicinity of the Daybell household. So, Eowyn is weighing in on the topic here. Tomorrow at 10:30 a.m., I'll have an appointment with the orthopedic doctor, so I'll have to let things ride while I am off to my appointment, so I apologize in advance for that tomorrow. Let's see. Yes, she is telling me all about it. Hey, kitty. Oh. I spent last night listening to an AI recording of O.J. Simpson and his book, If I Did It, and oh man, that's cold. I think I read it back when it first came out, but it really, I don't know, there's something about hearing it that hits a lot harder. So, let's see. Hey, kitty. Oh dear. I think I put hey, kitty. Oh, let's see. Nancy Grace had an interesting looking live show yesterday, and or was it yesterday? Okay, it was, I guess it was the day before. Let's listen to that. They'd go over the police affidavit. So let's listen.
Tiger Queen prints in their classic long robe. Breaking news tonight. Inside the bloody ambush of two Kansas moms, as chilling new details reveal how an evil mother-in-law lures the two moms to their deaths using damning internet searches, burner phones, stun guns, and a bulldozer. Good.
Wow. Now I did see yesterday that we had a fifth arrest in the case, so we'll look into that in a bit. But let's listen to what the evidence is.
Good evening. I'm Nancy Grace. This is Crime Stories, and I want to thank you for being with us.
"15 days after Veronica Butler and Jillian Kelly are reported missing, the Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigation announces the recovery of 2 bodies. The identity of the remains has not been confirmed as of yet, but we do know the remains have been sent to the Oklahoma Medical Examiner's Office for identification, as well as the cause and manner of death."
All that, burner phones, tasers, stun guns, bullets, weapons, a bulldozer, damning internet searches. Why? An evil mother-in-law / granny plots to kill her own daughter-in-law so she could have custody of the grandchildren? Really? Yes, that's what official documents are revealing tonight inside the investigation. But first, how did it all unfold? Listen.
The planned meeting place for Veronica Butler to pick up her children was a closed gas station near the intersection of Oklahoma State Highway 95 and Road L. The area is flat and desolate. There are no trees or homes nearby, as well as no traffic cameras. This is where Melissa and Joey Padilla, relatives of Veronica Butler, found her car after the mom didn't arrive at a birthday party for one of her children. The car was abandoned, and there were pools of blood nearby, so they called police. Investigators now say they believe Butler and Jillian Kelly were lured to the location, arriving around 9:40 a.m. Besides the pools of blood, officers found Butler's glasses on the ground near a broken hammer. Kelly's purse was also found. Inside was a gun magazine, but no weapon. Police say the women were forced into another vehicle. The women's phones stopped sending signals at 9:42 a.m. and have not been recovered.
Not only that, official court documents seemingly reveal that this was not their first attempt on the young mom. With me, and I'll start panel to make sense of what we are learning. Stunning and chilling details emerging. First, straight out to Lauren Conlon, investigative journalist, host of the Outlier podcast. Lauren, thank you for being with us. You've been on the case from the very beginning. I can't believe what I am seeing in this affidavit. A killer granny suspect uses a bulldozer, guns, there she is in all of her splendor and glory. Liz, you got to give me a before and after, please. Show me that glamour shot of her in the car. There's another one too, where she looks like really, that's her. That is a killer mother-in-law / granny, but a little overkill. Tasers, burner phones, bulldozer, weapons. Lauren, what's happening?
This is so tragic. It came out in these affidavits that this was not the first attempt to take Veronica Butler's life. They were planning to do something in February where an anvil would go through her windshield, as this was very common in the area. They would fall off construction trucks, and they believed.
Okay, please tell me you aren't somehow a victim of Stockholm syndrome, because anvils don't just fall out of the air into people's cars. I don't care where it is. I mean, hold on right there. Cheryl McCollum is joining me, founder, director of the Cold Case Research Institute, forensics expert. As a matter of fact, she's joining me right now from her squad car. Cheryl, host of a hit new podcast, Zone 7. I know maybe in Crazy Granny's world, an anvil falling from the sky or off a truck into the young mom's car sounds reasonable. It's not, Cheryl. It's not reasonable.
It is not reasonable. You're talking about something that is so heavy. There's no way it's going to fall off a truck. And if it does, it's simply going to land 3 feet onto the pavement, not up 5 to 6 feet through her windshield. So again, when you're talking about plotting and planning a murder and your baseline is Wile E. Coyote, you've got problems from the get-go. This was asinine at best.
Can I ask you something, Cheryl McCollum? I know you're comparing them to and their plan to a Wile E. Coyote plot, but these two women are dead, 6 children between them. And I don't care what anybody says, including a shrink that will tell me how wrong I am. There is nothing that can replace your mother. Nothing.
Amen. Amen.
And it may be a far-fetched plan. It may be. But these ladies are dead. Not just the young mom who is her right there, just going to throw a birthday party for her children. That's Veronica Butler, just 27 years old. But then you've got the other lady, the church secretary, preacher wife. She's dead too. Jillian Kelly, in her 30s, the prime of her life. She was just doing a ride along to facilitate the visitation and the pickup of mom's babies.
How long does it take to get a summer body with wall Pilates? My bestie recommended the wall Pilates challenge from Yoga Go.
6 children without a mom. So I don't care how zany their plot is. There were pools of blood left around this young mom's car because, in my mind, of killer granny. May she rot in hell. And let me point out, as Kelly Hyman will tell me pretty quickly, they're innocent until proven guilty. And you can all quit telling me that on Twitter. I know that. I know they're not guilty yet, but I guarantee you they will be because of a track a mile wide. Isn't that right, Lauren Conlon? A mile wide. Tell me about the evidence we're learning out of this warrant right here.
Okay, so this is crazy. So first and foremost, they got a search warrant on, I believe it was March 31st for Tiffany Adams's phone. So they searched through her phone and they find searches that read taser pain level, where to buy a gun at different gun shops in the area, and then where to get prepaid cell phones, and then how to get someone out of their house. Now, in the meantime, her boyfriend.
Stop. You know what? You're just like spouting all this damning information like it's a fire hydrant, Lauren Conlon. Too much, too fast. Okay, I'm
There's
drinking
so
from the
much.
fire hydrant
There's
here.
so
You
much.
said look up the pain level of a taser. That was the mother-in-law's, let's just say, Google search. She searched the pain level of a taser.
She did. She searched pain level.
Okay, I got to go now to
terrifying.
an eminent guest joining me, Dr. Kendall Crowns. He is the chief medical examiner in Tarrant County. That's Fort Worth, near Dallas, lecturer, University of Texas Christian University Medical School. And he is joining us right now from his office at the medical examiners. Dr. Crowns, thank you for being with us. I had a good friend at CNN who actually tasered himself, and a good friend at Court TV that followed up on it to make sure it really hurt. God rest his soul, Michael Christian. So, Dr. Kendall Crowns, tell me how a taser works. And this is what was the plan. This is the plan to use on 2 unarmed moms. A taser. How does it work? And how badly does it hurt, Dr. Crowns?
So conductive electronic devices like taser work by injecting prongs into your skin and then using these skins moisture to conduct electricity across it and then send a large amount of electricity into your body, basically shocking you. The shock itself causes a tremendous amount of pain, causes you to spasm and then collapse.
See, that's why I have to work with you so much before I could put you on the stand. Conductive electronic device. What are you talking about? Can you dummy down for me, please? And just say in regular people talk. how a taser works and the amount of pain? What can we compare it to?
Conductive electronic devices is what a taser is. Taser themselves prefer you call it a conductive electronic device because not all conductive electronic devices are tasers. It's like a Xerox machine is a copier, etc. So it is basically electricity being forced into your body, high amounts of electricity. It'd be like you putting a fork into a wall socket. You get the same kind of experience from that, except the wall socket doesn't cause as much electricity to go through you as a taser does.
As a general rule, a taser start with a baseline of 50,000 volts of electricity. 50,000 volts of electricity. What does that mean, Dr. Kendall Crowns?
That's the high amount of electricity. It's higher than basically your standard current in your house. So it's a large amount of electricity being put into your body all at once.
Just think about it. Think about it, Cheryl McCollum. This evil mother-in-law was prepared to use 50,000 volts of electricity minimum on the victims, in this case, 2 unarmed women. She didn't care if she caused that amount of pain. And Cheryl, think about it. Forget the taser. They were gunned down. I think they were shot dead.
But let's talk even more basic in the beginning. You've got 4 people, men and 2 women. It doesn't take a taser to control them. If you ambush 2 unsuspecting victims with 4 people, you're going to be able to control them fairly easily. I believe that the stun gun was for torture.
Wow, I hadn't even thought of that. Joining me right now, Kelly Hyman, trial lawyer and now civil lawyer, joining us out of Miami, also legal analyst and host of Once Upon a Crime in Hollywood. Kelly Hyman, I mean, this gang, which they call themselves God's Misfits, have left a trail a mile wide. The state's going to have a field day with this.
This is a horrible story for these young kids to lose their mother. And we always, when we look at things, is why do people do this? What was their motive behind this? What was their reasoning behind this? That's, key. And allegedly they were in some big family dispute, bitter dispute that left these beautiful kids without a mother. Ultimately, Nancy, as you said, you are innocent until proven guilty. But there is allegedly a lot of evidence coming out that's going to make a strong case for the state.
I need to bring up the innocent till proven guilty part. What more do we know, guys? Straight out to Lauren Conlon. Guns, bulldozers, tasers, stun guns. What more do we know, Lauren? And all of this is to take out 2 innocent, unarmed mothers?
Yes, let me stop you. There have been no guns found, just stun guns. So this is actually really interesting. And I'm a bit confused. I came across, I think it was yesterday or the day before, it was on an outlet called the Oklahoman. And you have to pay for a lot of these articles. I did not pay, but I did find a little snippet where the medical examiner said, I don't believe they were shot. And I'm going through all of these affidavits, the arrest affidavits, all the probable cause, and I don't see any guns. And as Dave Mack said, Jillian Kelly had a pistol magazine in her purse, but there were no guns. So all we have here is burner phones and stun guns. And then we have the equipment that I was going to get to. So Tad Cullum, Tiffany's boyfriend, he rented some land about 8 miles away from where their vehicle was initially found, Veronica and Jillian's. And he rented equipment like bulldozers and all these names that my son would know, skid steers. He'd be much better than I am at this. And he ends up digging a hole in this property and then covering it with hay. And this area is the last place where the women's phones were actually pinged, this area. And the property owner, I believe his name is Jamie Beasley, he had no idea what was going on. So when authorities send all those trucks to get the women, to get the bodies once they get the tip. He's crying. He's like, oh my gosh, I had no idea. And just in complete and utter shock. So I think it's safe to say we really don't know the manner of death or how these women died.
The women's bodies were found in a cattle pasture leased by Tadbert Cullum, the boyfriend of grandmother Tiffany Adams. The location narrowed down by cell phone data from 3 burner phones purchased by Adams. The phones first ping at the location of Butler's abandoned car. The data then led police to the pasture property. Obvious signs of digging were discovered. A hole had been dug and filled back in. Inside the hole were the bodies of the missing women. Other than the fact that foul play was evident, no other information has been released about the condition of the bodies. A stun gun was also found nearby.
And joining me, Cheryl McCollum, founder director, Cold Case Research Institute, and forensics expert. Cheryl, I can see all the digital fingerprint footprint adding up, placing the moms at this location, and coincidentally, the same location where the burner phones were turned off. But I want to talk about the magazine, the gun magazine found in one of the victims' Indian, the victims had a gun. And when I say a magazine, I'm talking about a mag, not a clip. A mag feeds rounds into the gun chamber as it's being fired. So what do you make of a mag being found?
Let's say you are going with somebody to meet, ex-family members that they've been fighting with for 9 years. Maybe somebody gave her something to, protect herself. We don't know if this was her potential part of a weapon or perpetrator. We don't know yet. And, all we do know is there are pools of blood at the scene, a broken hammer. So was somebody shot? Was somebody hit in the head, blunt force trauma? We don't know yet.
Guys, we are learning that a minor, we believe it to be a teen girl, has turned informant. Take a listen to this.
The teenager told police that she had heard conversation among the adults that Adams' grandchildren were at risk when they were with Butler. She told investigators that Adams had provided burner phones so that personal devices were not needed to communicate. The girl said she had seen 2 of the phones charging on her mother's nightstand. The day before the murders, Adam's boyfriend, Cullum, 43, had asked the owner of the property he rented if he could do some work there with his skid steer, a kind of bulldozer. According to the owner's conversation with police, Cullum reportedly said he wanted to cut down a tree, remove a stump, and bury some concrete. The women to where the others were waiting. When asked why Kelly had to die, her mother reportedly said because Kelly supported Butler, she wasn't innocent. The child asked Cora Twombly if they had put the bodies in a well. She was told something like that.
Wow. It's always difficult to put a child on the stand during a jury trial, but sometimes you have to. This teen girl revealing so much of what was going on in the home before the murders, in the home of the suspects. Straight back out to Lauren Collins joining us, investigative journalist and host of The Outlier. So a skid steer is a kind of bulldozer. Where were the 2 moms' bodies found?
So they were found by a dam in that rented area of the property. So I'm assuming that they were somewhat covered by this hay and the fresh dirt, I believe they called it, the soil, and they were easy to find. I want to point something out as well, Nancy. The witness, Cora, told her, or her daughter, whoever the witness was, that things didn't go according to plan. This mission did not go according to plan. So I don't know exactly what that means, but I have a hunch it has something to do with a possible fifth suspect that hasn't been arrested, but that's just my take.
Irv Brandt joining us. Irv Brandt, did you hear what Lauren Conlon just said? And I've read it in the official court docs that this gang, God's Misfits, said they were on a mission. They call murdering these two young moms.
All right, thank you. Perhaps while we're having the jurors brought in, let's do go on the record, CR 22211623. There was a question on Exhibit 14 and whether or not that would be admitted by stipulation. Did council resolve that?
Your Honor, I have had a chance to review that, and it is data recovered. It's a report referencing data recovered from Tammy Daybell's phone, and the contents of her phone were stipulated to. So we wouldn't have an objection.
Okay, so we'll just go ahead and admit Exhibit 14 once the jurors return, so they hear that.
Judge, I have a picture as well, and the state has a picture of their own. I guess we're going to play dueling pictures. Mine I'd like to mark as 14A. I don't know what the state would like to have theirs marked as.
Yes, it was the photo that Mr. Pryor showed us and then didn't actually move for admission of because we hadn't seen it before today. We would not object to the admission of that photo.
Can you use the microphone, please? We just got to get the record of this, Mr. Pryor.
And Judge, I also just saw their picture today, so I will stipulate to the admission of their picture as well. But mine is 14A if the bailiff wants to.
All right. Are you requesting that the bailiff retrieve that exhibit so it can be marked?
So it can be marked and accepted, Judge, as 14A.
Thank you, Mr. Bailiff. And we can have the jurors brought in once they're ready.
Sure.
Thank you.
All right, please. Here's our President Counter for Your Honor.
Thank you, Mr. Bailiff. Please be seated. Okay, we're back on the record. The jurors have returned and are properly seated. I'll note the parties were able to review those exhibits and have offered, and at this time the court will admit Defense Exhibit 14 as well as Defendant's Exhibit 14A, both admitted. You can continue with the cross-examination, Mr. Pryor.
Judge, if we could put the monitor back up with what I was discussing, which I believe was Exhibit 291. Now, officer, prior to taking our break, I think I was talking about the third paragraph down. And would you do me a favor and read the first two sentences of that?
Are you referring to the one where it says?
I think,
okay. I think I was a bit in shock because I just said, what do you think you were doing? Then I noticed the rifle was actually a paintball gun. It had a hopper on top.
Then the next line says, the guy started pulling the trigger and I could just hear the clicking and whooshing sound of an empty paintball gun. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. He stayed there standing by the back of the car, just pulling the trigger while pointing the gun at me. For some reason, I just kept asking him what he thought he was doing. Now, she did say in the sentence, just pointing the gun at me. And we don't know whether she meant a gun or whether she meant paintball, correct? Because she identified it as a paintball, but she did use the gun on that sentence, correct?
Yes.
But we don't know whether that was a mistake or whether she just decided not to type the word paintball in, right?
Correct.
Right. Okay. Then I just asked him at what point I was actually more annoyed than scared because he was standing between me and the door and he didn't step toward me or even say anything. Okay. Okay. So from what I understand, when she was backing up, then the front of the door is really right next to the garage, right?
If I remember right, yes, it's a little sidewalk up to the garage or
Yeah.
to the main door.
And that sidewalk's probably less than 5 feet, correct?
I can testify to that.
It's a short sidewalk.
Okay.
Though. Well,
I-
not okay. Do you
I can't testify to that.
Objection, Your Honor. Counsel's adding facts, not in evidence.
That's sustained. And in addition, please don't talk at the same time as each other. Mr. Pryor, wait for a concluded answer before you ask a new question.
Would you agree that it's a short sidewalk from the gate into the yard to the front door?
It is a short sidewalk, but I can't testify to how long it is.
Okay, that's okay. Now, from this description, this person was standing between the door and the garage at the very back of Tammy's, where Tammy's car was backed in, correct?
Yes.
So in other words, that was something that was at relatively close range. Would you agree with me?
Yes.
And in that sense, being at such close range, you'd probably get a pretty good look at what type of instrument was being pointed at you. Would you agree with me in that regard?
Objection, Your Honor. Calls for speculation.
Overruled.
Would you agree with me in that regard? When it's something that close to you and you're looking at it, you'd be reasonably certain about what you're looking at, correct?
It was in the daylight.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Now, we can all agree that the manufacturers of paintball guns make them in various shapes and sizes, correct?
Yes.
And the manufacturers of these guns get some benefit by making some of these guns look similar to weapons, right? Real weapons.
Yes.
And they can make them quite authentic at times, correct?
They can be, yes.
Right. But there is one thing that distinguishes a paintball gun between a real gun, and that is a hopper, correct?
Like you just mentioned before, the manufacturers are coming out with new guns. So yes, a hopper is one, but there's many other ways that paintballs can fit into a rifle without a hopper.
Okay. Okay. So in other words, unless we actually had this weapon in hand, we really don't know which one it is. Would that be fair?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Now, please correct me if I'm making a mistake, but without a suppressor, a AR-15 is a very, very loud gun, isn't it?
Yes.
And even with a suppressor, an AR-15 is not silent. It still makes a pretty loud noise, doesn't it?
It depends what kind of ammunition you're using.
Okay. Well, what kind of ammunition was in this gun?
That I don't know.
Well, you don't even know if it was a gun, do you?
I know it was a paintball gun or a rifle that she referred to.
Okay. Okay. But depending on the ammunition, there's still going to be a loud noise, right?
Are you asking with the suppressor on or off?
With the suppressor on, there's still going to be a noise, right?
There will be a noise, but not as loud depending on what
Okay.
ammunition you're using.
Okay. And when you're just several feet from the front door of a house with Garth Daybell and Chad Daybell inside the house, you would think they would have heard a gun if even with a suppressor, you think they would have heard the rifle shoot, right?
Again, it depends on what ammunition is being
Okay.
shot through the gun.
But what we do know and what we're certain of is that when a paintball gun is shot, they can't change the fact that there's a whooshing noise, can they?
There's a popping noise with the clicking,
And a whooshing noise.
whooshing and popping.
Right. Okay. Okay. So when Tammy Daybell in this report talks about the whooshing noise that she heard, sounds like she's describing the whooshing noise from a paintball gun.
Objection, Your Honor. Move to strike. Counsel's testifying.
Sustained.
Did it sound from this this email that Tammy Daybell's describing the whooshing noise of a paintball gun?
She said she heard a clicking and whooshing.
Okay. Okay. Now, we move further down and we talk about where it says the thought crossed my mind to hit him with my clogging shoes. Looked toward the house and yelled, Chad. They ran off around the north side of the house. You see that?
Yes.
Got Dad and Garth. They looked outside, couldn't find him, called the police, reported it. Then she uses the term, they suspect it was a bipolar teenager who lives down the street and walks around a lot. But Matt Price has an even better theory, right?
Yes.
Okay. So it's really unclear who they say they suspect it was a bipolar teenager. They don't know if we're talking about the police told them or whether it was Chad and Garth said it was a bipolar teenager. Is that fair?
That's fair.
Okay. So when Officer Coulter was on the stand, I had spoken to him about the fact that in his report he didn't mention anything about a bipolar.
Speculation.
Overruled.
Were you aware of the fact that there was a bipolar? Maybe I want to be careful with my words. Contacting the people in these neighborhoods?
I was not.
Okay. And are you aware whether or not you ever discussed that with Officer Coulter?
I can't recall if I did or not.
Okay. Did you discuss that with any of the other officers who were there at the time of this paintball incident about this bipolar teenager?
I did not.
Okay. Then we go on and we talk about his theory and his theory is that the crazy dog lady brought her husband back to steal the dog again. They had parked on the road and had snuck through the cow fields and he was going to cut through our front yard. So that's a couple of things. Park down the road, cut through the cow fields. Is that the Daybell's cow fields?
I can't testify if that's what she's referring to, because
Okay.
there are a couple others out there.
Yeah, but there are cow fields next door to the Daybells. The Daybells have a pasture behind their property as well, correct?
Yes.
And then they said they were going to cut through our front yard. So that would mean Chad and Tammy's front yard, correct?
Yes.
When I pulled up and startled him, he didn't know what to do. So he panicked and tried to menace me with his not real gun. So at that point, she's pretty clear that she knows it's a not real gun. Would you disagree with that?
Objection, Your Honor. Calls for speculation as to what Tammy knew.
Sustained.
Well, she put in a
Objection, Your Honor. Narrative.
Yeah, Mr. Pryor, I ruled on it.
Okay.
So ask a different question.
So after the line that says it was a not real gun and then ran off back across the field, which would explain why he ran across the side of the house. I never heard a car and we couldn't find anywhere. You see that?
Yes.
And then she wrote, it's actually a pretty good theory. You see that?
Yes.
Did you guys interview Regan Price?
We spoke with Regan Price. Yes.
Okay. Did you talk to Matt Price?
Yes.
Okay. And did they confirm the fact that someone stole their dog around the close in time to this occurrence?
I'd have to go back to my report. I know we spoke with them after this incident, quite a ways after this.
Okay. But you do know that this incident with the dog, I believe it occurred on the same day that the paintball gun took place. Is that right?
Yes,
And the issues about the bipolar teenager running around the neighborhood, that was close in time as well, correct?
that was Matt's theory, yes.
Okay. And then finally, honestly, would you read the word honestly down to the end of the paragraph?
Honestly, I just kept wondering what kind of person walks around with a ski mask on, carrying an empty paintball gun. Bipolar doesn't mean you want to hurt people, so I'm leaning more towards Matt's theory. The guy didn't try to rob me or even really hurt me. On Thursday night, though, I didn't go to Zumba because I quite understandably did not want to be out after dark alone.
So in this particular incident, it's saying that I'm leaning towards Matt's theory. The guy didn't try to rob me. I didn't try to hurt me. So she wasn't threatened by someone holding a paintball gun like a rifle, right?
Objection, Your Honor. Calls for speculation and mischaracterizes this email.
Sustained.
And Judge, I need to go back to I'd like to go back to 232B and I'd like to republish that for the jury, Judge.
All right, we'll have the bailiff provide that to you, Mr. Pryor.
And Judge, if we could just wait till I get it brought up. I think I'm ready, Judge. Let's hope.
All right, you may.
Minutes, 20 seconds.
Fremont County Sheriff's Office. Hi, I need to report something. Okay, go ahead. What's the address? Okay, at 202 North, 1900 East, the corner with the blinking yellow light on Salem Highway. Is it a suspicious person? Yes. Okay, what was he wearing? He was all dressed in black and he had a ski mask on. And he said the blinking light now is where you saw him? No, he's gone now because I pulled up into our driveway and I was getting stuff out of the back seat of my car and suddenly he was there and he had a paintball gun and he was and like he was going to shoot at me. And I kept asking him what he was doing because I could tell it was a paintball thing. Okay. And then he just kept doing it. So I yelled for my husband and then he took off running around the back of my house. Okay, give me just 1 minute. Stay on the line with me. Okay.
October 9, 2019, 21 hours, 50 minutes, 28 seconds.
And that was north 1900. Yes.
October 9, 2019, 21 hours, 50 minutes, 43 seconds.
In what direction he was going? he went behind my house and it's so dark out here, and I just went in the house and got my husband and son, and then they went out and looked, and he was long gone by then. Okay. So he was on the north side of my house, is where he went to get away. Okay. He didn't say anything, or he just kept like he was holding the gun, like he was, had a rifle and just shooting at me. So, but nothing came out of the gun either, so I don't think it was loaded. Okay, and what is your name, ma'am? My name is Tammy Daybell. Okay, I will pass your information on to my deputies. We actually just had a previous call about this individual, so they're out in the area looking now. Okay, yeah, I think it was my son-in-law who lived diagonal from us that called you guys already. Oh, but okay. Just wanted to make sure it got reported. So, let's see. And what's your son-in-law's name? Joseph Murray. Okay, yep, it was him. Okay. So, all right, I have a deputy that will be out at your home here shortly. Okay, thank you. Yep.
At some point, Judge, I'm also going to need 2:30.
Into the microphone, please, Mr.
We listened carefully to the 911 call from Tammy Daybell. Is that right?
Yes.
Now, she said paintball a number of times during that 911 call, correct?
A couple times, yes.
And then at the end, she said, holding the gun like he was holding a rifle. She never said he was holding a rifle, did she?
I think you just stated it. He was holding a gun like the rifle.
She never said she was holding a rifle, did she?
Objection, Your Honor. The audio speaks for itself.
Sustained.
Okay. There was no discussion about.
There's no specific rifle that she named, no.
Okay.
There's no specific rifle that she named.
Okay. Well, she didn't even say it was a rifle, did she?
She said a gun and a rifle.
Well, she said a gun holding like a rifle. Isn't that what she said?
Objection, Your Honor. Again, the audio speaks for itself.
Sustained.
Judge, I should be allowed to go into whether or not the manner in which.
Then we clear, but to just keep asking on the audio we just listened to is improper.
Bailiff, could I have 232 again, please? I think I want A. Thank you. So Judge, again, we'll ask to publish 232A again.
I believe we just published 232B.
Backwards, excuse me.
Okay.
I apologize. I think I'm ready, Judge.
Go ahead.
Second.
My punishment, Papa. Hi, I need to report something. Okay, go ahead. What's the address? Okay, at 202 North, 1900 East, the corner with the blinking yellow light on Salem Highway. Is it a suspicious person? Yes. Okay, what was he wearing? He was all dressed in black and he had a ski mask on. And he said the blinking light now is where you saw him? No, he's gone now because I pulled up into our driveway and I was getting stuff out of the back seat of my car and suddenly he was there and he had a paintball gun and he was and like he was going to shoot at me. And I kept asking him what he was doing because I could tell it was a paintball thing. Okay. And then he just kept doing it. So I yelled for my husband and then he took off running around the back of my house. Okay, give me just 1 minute. Stay on the line with me. Okay.
October 9, 2019, 21 hours, 50 minutes, 28 seconds.
That was north 1900 East. Yes.
October 9, 2019, 21 hours, 50 minutes, 43 seconds.
In what direction he was going? He went behind my house and it's so dark out here, and I just went in the house and got my husband and son, and then they went out and looked, and he was long gone by then. Okay. So he was on the north side of my house, is where he went to get away. Okay. He didn't say anything, or he just kept like he was holding the gun, like he was, had a rifle and just shooting at me. So, but nothing came out of the gun either, so I don't think it was loaded. Okay, and what is your name? My name is Tammy Daybell. Okay, I will pass your information on to my deputies. We actually just had a previous call about this individual, so they're out in the area looking now. Okay, yeah, I think it was my son-in-law who lives diagonal from us that called you guys already. Oh, so okay. Just wanted to make sure it got reported. So, let's see. And what's your son-in-law's name? Joseph Murray. Okay, yep, it was him. Okay. So, all right, I have a deputy that will be out at your home here shortly. Okay, thank you. Yep.
So we can agree then that the 911 call would speak for itself, right?
Correct. Having a rifle and shooting at her.
Having a rifle and shooting at her.
Having a rifle and pointing at her.
Is that what you heard?
Yes.
Okay, but I guess we can let the jury make a determination about what they heard, right?
Yes.
Okay. Now, we previously talked to, and Judge, I'm going to ask to publish 14A.
All right, do you have that with you?
I do, and it's already been admitted and accepted.
Okay, 14A may be published.
Now, officer, you're looking at what's been marked as Exhibit 14A, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Now, there's a big black round thing on the top of that gun. Do you know what that is?
That's a hopper.
Okay, and it's pretty distinct, right?
Yes.
Pretty clear to identify that it's a hopper. And they're clearly able to determine that there's a hopper on the gun. This would be a situation where they'd be able to clearly see that there's a hopper, correct?
If they're clearly able to see that, then
Right.
yes.
Okay. So if someone through their testimony talks about being able to clearly see that there's a hopper on a gun, that's a distinguishing fact, that's a distinguishing feature of a paintball gun. Is that correct?
If they clearly see it, yes.
Yeah, and if they're able to identify the fact that a particular paintball gun has a hopper and they can identify the hopper, it's obviously they saw a hopper, right?
Objection, Your Honor, calls for speculation.
Sustained.
Okay. But you spoke about it a little earlier where you said they're now designing paintball guns that look like rifles.
Yes.
And they're being very creative in doing that, correct?
Yes.
In fact, I would suggest to you that there are instances where people have manufactured paintball guns to make the scopes on a gun look like a hopper. Correct?
Are you suggesting that to me or asking?
Yeah, I'm suggesting that, asking you that.
Possibly.
Possibly. Okay. So if that were one of those special guns where they created a gun that had something on it that looked like a scope, someone could confuse the difference between a scope and a hopper, right?
Yes.
But if someone specifically says they saw a hopper on a gun, there's no,
Objection, Your Honor, this is going to call for speculation.
Sustained.
clearly that was a picture of a hopper on the gun, right?
During the day, yes.
Yeah, and you're able to distinguish that very clearly, right?
In the daylight, yes.
Oh, you telling me that there's a difference? You wouldn't be able to tell that in the night on the back of a porch with a light on?
Objection,
Oh.
Your Honor, argumentative.
Sustained and strike the answer.
Are you aware that there are lights on the front of the garage of the Daybell residence?
I was aware on that last call you played that Tammy Daybell said it was dark outside.
Right. But you didn't hear anything about the fact that there were lights out there or that the garage and the driveway was illuminated, right?
I didn't hear any of that.
Okay. I didn't know if I heard an objection or not, Judge, to that.
Withdrawn.
Go ahead.
Okay. What you did note that she identified it as a paintball gun, didn't she?
She used that with a rifle and gun.
Okay. And whooshing sound, right?
Correct.
Okay. Now, Judge, I believe that Exhibit 16 was previously admitted. If I could have the bailiff bring me Exhibit 16. And Judge, if I could just have a moment, please.
Yes.
Thank you, Your Honor. Now, Officer, are you aware as part of your investigation that Tammy Daybell sent out a Facebook posting to what she described as the Friends of the Salem Ward, something like that?
I remember she sent something out on that, yes.
Okay, okay. You don't have a recollection of what it said though, probably, correct?
Not exactly.
And Judge, could we publish Exhibit 16?
You may.
I have it ready to go, Judge, whenever the clerk is ready. Okay, can you? I don't know if I can expand that or not, Judge. No. Are you able to read that, officer, on your monitor?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Go ahead. Would you read that email for me?
Something really weird just happened, and I want you to know so you can watch out. Had gone home and parked him out in our front driveway. As I was getting stuff out of the back seat, a guy wearing a ski mask was suddenly standing by the back of my car with a paintball. He shot at me several times, although I don't think it was loaded.
Okay, you can stop there. So again, and this email that you said you reviewed was to the Friends of the Salem Third Ward. Do you know what the Salem Third Ward is?
Are you referring to the Facebook or the email?
Facebook, the Facebook here that was sent out.
Okay. I'm not just a church ward,
Okay,
the Salem Third Ward.
okay. You've heard of that before? You've heard
Yes.
of the Salem Third Ward before?
Well, I'm assuming it's their church they go to out that way.
Okay, you don't know how large of a ward that is or how many members they communicate to, right?
I don't.
Okay, but you do know that she got on there at this point and discussed the incident that took place, correct?
Yes.
And did she ever use the term rifle in this Facebook posting?
No,
Did she ever use the word gun?
no,
But she did use the word paintball gun, correct?
yes.
Okay. All right, Judge, I'm done with that. Thank you. And Judge, I have, I don't. If I could just have a minute again, Judge. I apologize.
It's fine.
Now, um, Judge, I need the court to advise whether or not Exhibit 15 has been admitted or offered for admission.
We'll check. No.
And I guess I have to pull this out and Judge ask that the court, I think this is by stipulation of the parties. Exhibit 15 has been stipulated by the parties to be admitted, and I'd ask it to be marked and accepted with the court, Exhibit 15.
All right, I'll confirm with the state.
Yes, Your Honor, I believe that this is a segment of the data recovered from Tammy Daybell's phone, and the contents of her phone have been stipulated to.
Okay. So exhibit 15 is offered and will be admitted.
Now, before I go into Exhibit 15, Officer, you discussed that you did a lot of discovery and looking at what was the term you used? What?
Geofencing?
Geofencing. And when you're looking at phone records and emails and Facebook postings, sometimes there's a reference after the time that indicates the letters UTC. Are you familiar with what UTC means?
I've heard the term. I'm trying to think. I believe it's a couple hours off of certain time zones.
Okay. And are you aware that in Idaho, it's a universal time zone equation that they put together, right? So that the whole world is on the same time zone, correct?
I believe so, yes.
Right. And are you aware that Idaho is when there's a UTC, you have to actually subtract 6 hours from the time that's noted on a UTC. Does that sound about right?
I know you had to subtract, I'm not sure if it's 6 hours, but yes, I do know you had to subtract some hours.
Do you have any reason to believe that it's not 6 hours?
No.
Okay. Okay. Now, I'd like to go back to the call from Tammy Daybell. And if you don't remember, it's fine. But the call to 911, do you recall what time that call was made? Is there some kind of report you could refresh your recollection with quickly?
Well, I know there was two that came in, one from Joseph Ryan and Tammy. I believe hers was around 9:41.
Okay. Okay. And then hers was 9:41
I believe so.
or 9:51, somewhere in there.
I'm not 100% sure on that, so I guess I can't testify truly on that.
Okay. Okay. But it was clearly after 9:30 though.
Objection, Your Honor. The officer just said he couldn't testify to that.
Sustained.
Okay. Okay. Judge, I'd like to put up Exhibit 15 for publication.
You may publish.
I'm ready, Judge, whenever the clerk is. I'm showing it, Judge. I'm not sure what.
All right, we'll see if we could get someone to maybe take a look at.
Oh, I think we're there.
Okay.
I just had to wiggle a little. I had to wiggle the cords a little bit. Okay, so can you see that from your screen, officer?
Yes.
And I would represent to you that this was off of Tammy Daybell's account, stipulated by the parties as a retrieval of her Google searches. Can you read the very first one?
Search for a paintball gun,
Okay, and
paintball
then
guns.
we talked about the UTC and well, I guess I suggested it was 6 hours. You didn't really specify, but would you read October, the date of when that was done, that Google search was done?
October 10th, 2019.
Okay, October 10th, 2019. And the time on that, the UTC time would be what?
If it is 6 hours, it would be 9:29.
On the 18th.
Correct.
Okay.
On the 10th.
Oh, you're right. I'm sorry. All right. So the day that this incident took place was what?
October 9th.
Okay. And the UTC, if it goes back 6 hours from AM at 3:29 AM on the 10th, going back 6 hours, wouldn't that put us at 9:30 on the 9th?
Yes.
Okay, so at well, actually, let's
Well-
be clear, 9:29 on the 9th, right?
Yes.
Okay, so at 9:29 on the 9th of October, there was a Google search by Tammy Daybell searching out paintball guns, correct?
Correct.
Now, I don't remember seeing a discussion with Officer Coulter in his, I guess it was his second report, where he talked about that Tammy Daybell did a Google search on paintball guns.
Objection, Your Honor, counsel's testifying.
Did you see that? in his-
Wait. Objection pending, it's sustained.
Did you see a reference in Officer's second report about Google searches at 9:29 on the 9th of October?
No.
Okay, well. Your previous testimony was that Tammy Daybell made a 911 call sometime 9:41 is what you recalled. But the Google search occurred at 9:29. Is that what you see?
Yes.
So what we can gather from that is that Tammy Daybell, after this incident, did a search of paintball guns and then 10 minutes later called 911, right?
Yes.
Okay, do you remember what the date of the Facebook posting was when she posted that Facebook?
I do not recall that date.
Okay. And then let's move down a little bit. The next one.
Search for
And again, the time.
October 10th, 2019 at 3:29.
So basically, if we go back to UTC time, we're back at around 9:30 again, right?
Yes.
So her Google searches at that point, and just for everybody's edification, we don't need to go down the other ones because they're not relevant to this, but the first two, the first one was a paintball gun search at 9:29, right?
Yes.
Then she looked for an airsoft gun search at 9:29, right?
Yes.
Did she ever look for a rifle?
She did not.
Did she ever look at any other shotgun?
She did not.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Bailiff. nobody was there from your agency at the time of this incident with Tammy Daybell and this person. Is that correct? That she was allegedly shot at,
We responded to that.
but nobody was
Yeah.
there when it occurred.
Correct.
And in fact, Chad wasn't there either, right?
Objection, Your Honor, calls for speculation.
Sustained.
Well, you know from the report that Tammy talked about Chad and Garth coming out afterwards, correct?
Yes.
And there's no indication at the time of this occurrence that there was anybody other than a masked man and Tammy Daybell. Is that right?
And in Tammy's email, Chad and Garth.
Well, Chad and Garth were inside the house, right?
Yes.
Okay. So at the time of this alleged shooting, the two people would be a masked man and Tammy Daybell. Would that be fair?
Outside of the residence, yes.
Okay. So the best person to determine what type of instrument this was would be one of the people who was there at the time, right?
Objection, Your Honor, calls for speculation.
Overruled.
Your Honor, may I voir dire nave objection?
Well, just the way that question was phrased, I'm overruling that. It was just of the two. Go ahead and re-ask the question, Mr. Pryor.
The best person to determine what type of instrument that was would have been Tammy Daybell, correct?
One of the
Objection, Your Honor.
Grounds.
It calls for speculation. May I have voir dire native objection?
Go ahead.
Detective Kaikamanu, did you ever have an opportunity to speak with Tammy Daybell?
No.
Do you know, did you ever determine her knowledge of firearms?
No.
Do you know her experience with paintball guns?
No.
Do you know her experience with firearms?
No.
So do you know if she'd be able to tell the difference?
No.
Your Honor, I'd object to that. It calls for speculation.
All right. Well, I am going to overrule it on the speculation objection, but of course she'll be.
You actually corrected me. There are two people there that would know what type of instrument that would do. Two people that would be the best people to identify what kind of instrument, correct?
Correct. One of the two.
Yeah, the person in the ski mask would be one. We don't know who that was, right?
Correct.
And Tammy Daybell.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Officer, Judge, I'd like to now go through on the Elmo Exhibit 107, if I could.
You may.
Thank you, Your Honor.
We'll allow that to be published. It's already been admitted.
And obviously, during your talk with the prosecuting attorney, this has already been admitted, and you went through that. You recall that, right?
Yes.
Now, as part of your examination, you provided records from Fremont County Sportsman's Club, right?
Yes.
And you did the start date of sometime of 10/16. Is that right? Is that what you recall?
The start date of
When the documents that you provided to the prosecuting attorney, the first entry on there, it looks to be about 10/16. Am I mistaken?
I'd have to relook at those.
Okay, Judge, could we show this to the witness to refresh his recollection? When you're done, just hand it back. Thank you, sir.
Yes.
And Your Honor, may the state know what's being shown to the witness?
Which exhibit did you just reference?
It's their exhibit of the entries to the visits to the Sportsman's, I don't want to misstate the name of the organization, Sportsman's Gun Club.
Thank you.
That is exhibit 390A. I'm sorry, 396A.
Okay, and if I could have that back. Now I'm looking at this exhibit and it appears that it starts on 10/16. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay, now, did you happen to take the time to look at the entries prior to that time?
Prior to 10/16, yes.
You did.
Yes.
And Alex Cox arrived in Idaho from what you learned from your investigation about when?
On the 1st of September.
So on the 1st of September. So after arriving, um, as part of your investigation, what did you discover from September 1st to October 15th in terms of the number of times that Alex Cox visited the gun range?
Give those dates one more time.
September 1st we'll just make it October 15th.
So Alex Cox, from my knowledge, was at the gun range in St. Anthony from October 7th to the 16th.
Okay. And you don't have any entries of him being there in September?
Not at the Fremont County gun range, no.
Do you have him at any other gun range in the month of September?
I believe there were some in Rexburg, Idaho.
Okay. And when you say some, that would indicate that there were more than 2 or 3. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. So he'd had a habit. You also had an opportunity to review the searches of Alex Cox on his computer as well, correct?
I don't believe on his computer.
You
no.
didn't review any of that?
I reviewed some of the Homer J. Maximus. I'm not sure if that was off of his computer or not.
Okay. But as part of the Homer J. Maximus, are you aware that Alex Cox had been looking at weapons as early as 2017?
I was not aware of that early, no.
Okay. Well, how early were you aware of when he was looking at weapons?
September, October of 2019.
And that's because that's when you went, that was your reference point. September 1st is when you started your reference point, right?
What I looked at, yes.
Yeah. So you didn't really go back and look at all of the searches that Alex Cox conducted prior to September of 2019, right?
I did not.
Okay. Okay. But you are aware that Alex Cox has a history of engaging in the use of guns or other weapons on folks, right?
Objection, Your Honor. States facts not in evidence.
Overruled.
Are you aware, and I'll rephrase that, you're aware of the situation regarding Brandon Boudreaux, right?
Yes.
And you're aware that it's alleged that Alex Cox at a long distance shot at Brandon Boudreaux, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And you're aware of Charles Vallow, correct?
Yes.
You're aware that Alex Cox took a gun and at close range murdered Charles Vallow, correct?
Yes.
And you're also aware that in both of those instances, Chad Daybell has not been criminally implicated in either of those cases. Is that correct?
Yes.
And Chad Daybell has not been charged in either of those cases. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Are you aware of any other instances where Alex Cox engaged in conduct towards other people with the use of any kind of a weapon?
Of a firearm?
Any kind of a weapon?
I know that there was an incident with Lori's.
Objection, Your Honor. May we approach?
Yes. All right. Thank you, counsel. I had the presence of the jurors. Mr. Pryor, you may continue with your cross-examination.
So we talked a little bit about the fact that you're aware that Alex visited the gun range in September of 2019, right?
Yes.
You're not aware of whether he had visited or went to any gun ranges when he was living in Arizona 6 months prior. You didn't look into that. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. Now, officer, on your, this will be tricky. On your Homer J. Maximus, you talked about a number of searches and you recall that, correct?
Yes.
Oops. Judge, this is the Elmo, I'm sorry.
And what is it you're publishing?
Uh,
Okay. This is part of exhibit 107B.
And this talked a little bit about the gun and the distance and everything else, correct?
Yes.
And what I'm wondering about is that the first one that says the Grendel drop 100 to 200 yards, correct?
Yes.
Okay, now Tammy Daybell's driveway, and you described it as the distance between the end of the desk there and towards this first section here, correct?
Yes.
And for a clear record, we're 30 to 40 feet.
Sure.
Okay. Now, if we do math and look at 100 yards, how many feet is 100 yards? Do you know?
Well, there's.
I
3
can help
feet,
if you'd
yeah.
like.
Yeah, help me out.
Yeah, me too. I had to look at, no, I didn't have to look it up. It's 3 feet per yard.
Correct.
Okay, I'm sorry, and I know you weren't, that's not fair. It's 3 feet per yard. Okay, you know
Yes.
that, right? So if we're looking at a Grendel drop, we start at yards. We go to 600 feet. Would that be fair?
Yes.
Now, none of those feet distances really apply to Tammy Daybell's driveway, right?
Not her driveway.
Okay. And then the 100 yards to 300 yards is the same thing, 300 feet to 900 feet, correct?
Yes.
So obviously what he was looking at this point is the distance and how to put a rifle and the amount of drop after you shoot it, that the bullet drops after a certain distance, right?
Yes.
And when was this in October?
This was searched October 8th.
Okay. And, when I looked at this, I was curious, is there any indication that Alex Cox purchased a big game hunting license in October?
That I am unaware of.
Okay. And would you agree with me that October is also hunting season for various big game?
It is hunting season, yes.
Okay. And then he looked at, and you could use a Grendel for a hunting gun, is that correct?
You could, yes.
Yeah. Okay. And if you were to purchase pants and just trying to just conceal yourself while you're out hunting, it wouldn't be inappropriate to buy different various suits to conceal yourself. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
Okay. Oops. I'm grateful to whoever put the tape up there. And then we go to October 10th. How to prepare your AR for cold weather. Now, if you're out shooting and you're out hunting, and I'm not suggesting we use an AR for hunting, but in October, when you're out hunting, that's a cold time to go hunting, isn't it?
Yes, it could be cold.
Okay. Okay. And then we talked a little bit about the ghillie suit, and potentially that could be something that could be used as a hunting outfit when you're out in the game hunting, right?
Could be, yes.
Yeah. Well, you can buy those at Sportsman's Warehouse or Cabela's or any of those stores, right?
Yes.
You looked into that, and that's where you get them, right?
You can, yes.
Yeah, Sportsman stores for outdoor activities in October, right? Right?
Yes, you can buy them there.
Okay, okay. Okay. Now, what we did is then we looked at a FBI simulation of shooting a 5.56 through car doors and walls. And a 5.56 is a type of a bullet, right?
Yes.
Okay. And that's a specific bullet. And what it appears is there was a search to see what kind of a bullet would go through car doors and walls, correct?
Yes.
And then you would also see what kind of caliber under that would penetrate a windshield, correct?
Yes.
Now we know that the allegations about Alex Cox is that he took a shot at Brandon Boudreaux, correct?
Yes.
And in relation to Lori Vallow, Brandon Boudreaux was Lori Vallow's, no, Melanie Pulowski was Lori Vallow's niece, right?
Yes.
And she was married to Brandon Boudreaux.
Yes.
So Brandon Boudreaux was the male spouse of Alex Cox's niece, Melanie Pulowski, right? Correct?
Yes.
Okay. So Alex Cox took a shot at the male member of the relationship between Melanie, Lori's family, and the male, right?
Yes.
And then Alex Cox murdered husband number 4 by taking a gun and shooting him at close range. And that was Lori Vallow's husband number 4, correct?
I'm not sure what husband it was.
Okay. Well, she's had
But-
5, right?
Okay.
Well, do you know that?
I'm not 100% sure on how.
Oh,
many
that's
he had.
okay. That's okay. Okay. So, but we do know that Alex Cox is accused of murdering Charles Vallow, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now, when I go down, you testified that Chad Daybell, well, before we get that, it would seem that, would you agree with me that it would seem that the searches here, the Google searches, would suggest that Alex Cox is looking at shooting at some sort of a Dodge Dakota vehicle. Would you agree with me?
Yes.
And it looks like it wasn't for target practice. It was to do some harm, correct?
I don't know what his intent was, but it's not target practice, I
Right.
would say.
Well, it wouldn't be target practice if you're trying to penetrate a windshield, is it?
No.
And it isn't target practice if you're asking how thick is the 22 gauge steel on a Dodge Dakota, right?
No.
So apparently, what Alex Cox had in mind was to do some harm for whoever is driving a Dodge Dakota, correct?
Yes.
Are you aware that Chad Daybell was the one driving the Dodge Dakota?
Objection, Your Honor. Facts not in evidence.
Stand.
Are you aware of the 2 vehicles that Chad and Tammy Daybell owned?
I'm aware of a Dodge Dakota that was registered to both of them.
Right. But you don't have any specific information about whether or not it was Chad who was the primary driver of the Dodge Dakota, right?
I don't have any facts that he was the primary driver now.
Okay. Okay. Now, as part of your investigation, you talked a little bit about phone records, right? I'm sorry, phone records, Alex's records in terms of his location, right?
On Homer J. Maximus device.
Okay,
yes.
and you looked at that. What was the device that you were reviewing to determine that?
I'm not sure what device that was.
Okay, okay. All right, then we'll save that for another day. Now, Judge, previously, we stipulated and the court entered exhibit number 14. I'd like the court's permission to go over exhibit 14 with the witness.
All right, has that previously been admitted?
Judge, I have it here with the stamp on it. I think we had already established it.
Yes, Your Honor. I think,
Established and stipulated to it, Judge. I'm sorry.
and the state had reviewed this. It's my understanding these are the extracts from Tammy Daybell's phone or contain extracts. I think it's actually a police report referencing those extracts from her phone.
Okay, it's been admitted, so it may be published.
If I could just have a moment, Judge, I'm sorry. Judge, I'm ready when
Your Honor, I hate to do this, but can we briefly approach?
Yes. publishing that particular exhibit, we just redacted an identifier mark from that we caught. So you may go ahead and publish when you'd like, Mr. Pryor.
Now, officer, on this particular document, and I would represent to you that this is one of your reports. On the little bit that you're seeing, do you recognize that? Received information from Google LERS. What's LERS?
Google Lears Law Enforcement.
Okay. And you asked for information attached to this, and this was information that you were getting regarding Tammy Daybell's email account. Would that be fair?
Yes.
Did you get the entire email account?
Yes.
And did you go through the entire email account?
Yes.
And you reviewed all of the emails and you made a determination as to which ones you in particular felt were relevant to this case. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And then you said after looking at the emails, you didn't include the ones that were significant. And there were photos, emails, chats. The information that I found relevant to the investigation, you see attached here, correct? Or it's in the email folder are chats. Would you read that one for me?
In the email folder are chats between Tammy and Mark while on his mission. Want me to read the whole?
If you would, if you don't mind.
There are also chats between Mark, Tammy, Seth, Garth, and Emma. During some chats, it is very clear that chat is messaging. In the chats, it is also clear that chats are coming from Tammy's email.
Okay. And then I'll go to the next line saying, looking over the inbox of Tammy's email, it shows, oh gosh, I'm so sorry. Let me get a record, right? Looking over the inbox of Tammy's email. It shows the first section as chats, mainly with Mark, while he is on his mission. In the chats, it does not show the time or date when the chats are taking place, right?
Yes.
Okay. Then the line below, why don't you read the line below for me?
While looking over the chats, there are several that lead me to believe Tammy, along with Mark, Emma, Garth, Seth, and Leah, have knowledge of the belief in light and dark people that Chad talked about and believed.
Okay. So what I gather from that is your assessment in the reports that after you reviewed all of the emails and you said you reviewed them all.
Yes.
That's a significant job.
Yes.
And in reviewing all of those, you came to the conclusion that the Daybell, Tammy Daybell, Chad Daybell, and his 5 children had knowledge of the belief in light and dark people.
Yes.
And the light and dark is a religious reference that's mentioned by Chad, right?
Yes.
It's mentioned by other people in this case, right?
Yes.
It's also mentioned to some extent in predominantly most religions. Would you agree with that?
Say that again.
Predominantly in most religions, there's a reference to light and dark, right?
I can't testify that because I
Okay.
don't know all the religions.
Okay. And then the religious practice that these folks practice, that Tammy and the children and Chad practices of what faith?
LDS.
Okay. Okay. Then we go on and if you would, I'll take a look at the next one where it says during the chats, Mark's camera was not working and Tammy informed him that his camera was cursed and Dad was removing it, right?
Yes.
Okay. In more chats, Mark asked if anything was found or notable in him is body coded. I'm not sure what body coded means. Do you have any knowledge of what being a body or body coded talks about?
No.
Okay. but it was Mark who was talking about the body coating. Would that be your assessment?
Yes.
Okay, and then Tammy responds, you has a lot of weapons, negative chords and curses, plus trapped emotions. We cleared out quite a bit. We'll do that more regularly because we cleared it out, right?
Yes.
That would you believe that that was Tammy and Chad who were clearing out these negative chords and curses?
In this email, yes.
Okay. And then we'll do that more regularly for you. And again, it's we'll do that more regularly for you. That implies that it was both Tammy and Chad talking about helping them clear out these weapons, right? Then we go down. You see that?
Yes.
Do you have any knowledge as to whether Canyon Scott is, do you know who Canyon Scott is?
I do not.
Okay. But obviously, it's someone who attends church or attends Sunday school where Chad and Tammy went to their Sunday school, right?
Yes.
So we could presume that it was someone in Fremont or Madison County, right?
Yes.
Okay. And then it goes on, I will enjoy watching his growth to world terror and domination. And then Emma replies, I like Canyon though. I'll slow down. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. The next line is, I will enjoy watching his growth to world terror and domination, right?
Yes.
Emma replies, I like Canyon though. Tammy and Chad reply, unfortunately, he's already influencing Will Dowling. Who's Will Dowling? Do you know?
I do not.
Okay. Then Mark goes, I like Jose and I can't pronounce that last name, Ojeda also. Then Mark says, darkness is interesting. And then Tammy and Chad both say, maybe they're influencing you too. They are charming, right?
Yes.
So we don't have any information about Jose Ojeda or anything about him, any criminal activity associated to his demise, right?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. Judge, it's 12 o'clock. Judge, it's 12 o'clock. I don't know. This may take a while.
Sure.
It's up to the court.
Yeah, let's
obviously.
take our lunch recess. We try to do that at noon for timing of things, so that'll work out well. We are stopping right here about noon. We'll try to resume further testimony 1 o'clock and take the lunch break now.
And Judge, may I leave my stuff up here?
Yeah, we'll secure the courtroom and you can leave that there, Mr.
Thank you,
Bryant.
Your Honor.
All right, please.
Okay, well that that concludes the morning session of court. I'm feeling inclined to take a break over lunch and start up a new stream at 1 p.m. So can have a bit of a break and unwind, and we'll see you in an hour. Bye-bye.